Good morning. We are moving on in Chapter 9, and this is going to be a pretty quick set of notes here to get through 9.8. Before we get into some problems, I want to first talk about some vocabulary. So what we're going to be looking at in this section is using Pythagorean theorem in some 3D figures or space figures. So let's talk about some vocab for these figures. So the first one is about our rectangular solid, which is kind of like a rectangular prism. And one of the features of these rectangular prisms is that they have 6 faces. So A, B, F, E, these flat sides that make up the prism, those are all called faces. So that's one of our regular faces. A, B, this side here, is one of the 12 edges that make up this shape. And HB, shown here going through the shape, is one of the diagonals. So we've got faces, edges, and diagonals. The other shape we're going to be looking at are regular square pyramids. So they have a square base and they come up to a point to make a pyramid. So JKMO, the square at the bottom is called the base. P at the top is our vertex. PR, going from the vertex to the base, is the altitude, and it is perpendicular to the base because remember an altitude is perpendicular by definition. PS is a slant edge, and it is also perpendicular to the side of the base. Okay, so that's just a little bit of vocabulary there for you. Let's look at, we've just got 2 problems that we're going to work. The first one is with our rectangular prism here. So we're told the dimensions of a rectangular solid are 3, 5, and 7. So length, width, and height. And it's kind of labeled here. AD would be 3, which means BC is also 3. AB is 7, which means EF is also 7. And our height is 5. So here CG is 5, which means FB. And all of those corresponding sides are also 5. So we want to find the diagonal, and all of our diagonals are going to be the same length, but HB is the one that we have drawn here. So I want to be able to find that length HB. Now I know HD corresponds to GC, so this height here, HD, is also going to be 5, but I don't know DB, so I can't use Pythagorean theorem to find HB until I know what DB is. And if I look here, DB also forms a right triangle along the base, and I do know the 2 of those sides, so I can use Pythagorean theorem to first find DB and then use that value and 5 to find HB. So again, first we need to find DB. So I know the sides are 3 and 7, so we're going to use our Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So 3 squared plus 7 squared is going to be equal to DB squared. So 9 plus 49 is 58. And so DB is going to be the square root of 58. So this length here is the square root of 58. Now I'm going to use that length and my height HD to find the hypotenuse of this other right triangle right here. So again, Pythagorean theorem is going to be 5 squared plus the square root of 58 squared is equal to HB squared. So that's going to be 25 plus 58, which is 83. So HB is going to be the square root of 83, and that does not simplify. So that is my final answer. Okay. Moving on to our second example with our pyramid. We're told this is a regular square pyramid with altitude PR and slant height PS. We're told the perimeter of JKMO is 40, PK is 13, and we want to find JK, PS, and PR. So let's find JK first. JK is one of the sides of my regular square base, so that means all of these sides are congruent. And if the perimeter is 40, JK would be equivalent to 40 divided by 4. It's 1/4 of that perimeter. So JK is 10, which means all of these sides of my square base are 10, and that's going to be important to know, because next we want to find PS, which is our slant edge right here. And so if this whole length is 10, and I've got a perpendicular slant edge, because this is a regular base, it's also going to bisect this side, KM. So that means that KS is 5 and MS is 5. And we were told that PK, this length right here, is 13. So I've got a right triangle where PS is one of the sides, and I can use Pythagorean theorem. So again, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And in this case, I'm given c, and I need to find a or b. It doesn't matter how you order them. So 5 squared plus b squared is equal to 13 squared. So we're going to do our algebra. We find that b squared is equivalent to 169 minus 25, which is 144. So b is 12, and b was our height PS. So PS is equal to 12. And then last but not least, we want to find our length PR, which was our altitude. So I'm going to have to look at an additional right triangle here, where in this case, PS is the hypotenuse, PR that we're looking for is one of the sides, and RS is the other side. And again, I know that this vertex, or this altitude, goes to the center of my base. So that means that it is halfway across this length. And this length is also 10, so that means RS is 5 if it's at the halfway point, it's at the center. So my sides are 5 and PR, we don't know what PR is, and my hypotenuse is 12. So 5 squared plus PR squared is equal to 12 squared. So 25 PR squared is equal to 144. So PR squared is 119. And so PR is equal to the square root of 119, and that does not simplify either. So JK is 10, PS is 12, and PR is the square root of 119. And that wraps up our 9.8 notes.